Right. All right, seems to be working. Okay, so yeah, last call of the year. It's been a bit of a crazy year, I guess, and yeah, this past month was not the most forgiving of months, but yeah, hopefully everything's is okay now. Yeah, hopefully the streaming as well is working, but it should be working. All right, so before we start, then, are there any quick updates from anyone else that you'd want to share?
So, not a big one. Just I was trying to resume the prism layer pull request
Mm.
this morning. So um, I wrote some PR at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and hi Diana.
Hi. Hola.
Hi, Diana.
Yo no sé por qué tenía que ir a mediodía acá para mí. Revuelto con esos calendarios, qué pena.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, time zones are hard. All right, so you were saying, Santiago, about the.
Yes, that I've started drafting a prism layer pull request a while ago. Basically working with the needs that Lorenzo had,
Mm-hmm.
especially for doing terrain corrections and so. And we decided to refactor it a lot. So I started drafting the new version, but obviously, I mean, I was leaving all the tests and examples for later, and then my move uh, got in the middle, and this course of last week, so uh, the PR was a mess because neither the examples or the tests were working properly. So I was trying to resume that and trying to remember uh, where was my intentions. So I think that's the major update I have so far. You're muted.
Anyone else? All right. So from me, I think the major updates would be that we just released Pooch 1.3. So this has a couple of new features that the scikit image developers were wanting, because they were getting failures when downloading data sets on continuous integration. So sometimes the download would fail randomly, and then their whole tests would fail because this one download didn't work. So what we did was to add an option that you could say retry the download 5 or 6 times. Um, so then we can we could add that option to our packages as well. So that if the download fails once, Pooch will try again. It waits a couple of seconds and tries again. This might be even good for Rockhound, where we have larger downloads, and they tend to fail more often. Yeah, I think that's the major change. There were some other minor changes. And yeah, so we got a new contributor on Bull. Chris, is it Chris? Who started contributing a whole bunch of stuff, and he's working on unifying the ellipsoid, sphere, and triaxial ellipsoid classes into a single class. So we still need to look into that, but that'll make Bool quite a bit easier to use where you just, depending on how many axes you give it, it'll make the appropriate ellipsoid. Yeah, so in terms of quick updates, that's it for me. So it's nice to have someone new in the call here. So sorry to put you on the spot, Diana, but it's nice to see you. So do you want to tell us like a little bit about yourself, or like what you're interested in? I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the typical sentence in 2020.
Yes.
You're muted. Thank you. Well, my interest to join today's call. It was a little bit for. Well, I am a user from Fatiando and all the Python packages and things like that. And probably I should have asked this to Agustina or Santiago before, but so in this moment, I would like to find a tool that is going to help me to do property modeling. I don't know if any of you have used Petrel in some point, or any software that really do kind of property modeling. I'm looking for something like that. So I'm not sure if I am understanding very well what is Verde, what Fatiando tools have that maybe can help me, or yes, in my specific case, what I am trying to do is to do property modeling for a geothermal small basin here in Colorado, and I understand it should be something not really too difficult to in terms of how the maps are done and everything, but I'm pretty sure there are tools out there for that. If not, it should be something basic, and we can improve in the way as long we apply and things like that. So that is my main interest of joining today this call, and know all the good work that I know all of you have done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so when you say property modeling, do you mean something like in seismics with AVO and things like that?
Specifically for what I want is for well data.
Okay.
So we have more than 2,000 wells in the area, and we have logs. Yes, electrical logs. And yes, and what I want to do is property modeling for the resistivities. That is my first basic model.
Okay. So we don't really have much of that, but there's a bunch of tools by Agile Scientific.
That probably I can.
Yeah, so there's one called Welly. So they're good with the naming. I'll put this in the.
Yeah, I have used Welly, Lazio, and those are very good to handle all the LAS files and all that stuff. So it's good. But looking a little more for the how do you say, the modeling, the basic modeling, a little more for that. But I can take a look and like to see if so. What about Verde? I have heard Verde in many presentations, like international for students, even for the industry using Verde.
Right. So yeah, Verde was something that I kind of started thinking of. So initially, it was basically just going to generate points for grids. But then I started working more on interpolation problems and kind of discussing this sort of stuff with Santiago. So what Verde ended up becoming is a library for working with scattered spatial data. Right. So if you have grids, if you have grids, then you probably don't need Verde. So if you already have the grids, you probably don't need Verde. But if you have
to build points, the grids.
So if what you're looking for is interpolation, then Verde might be good for that. But it's mostly looking for 2D. So we haven't really done anything with 3D interpolation.
Can take a look of that.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
Yeah. And if there's
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
that you wish it would do that it doesn't, then that's something that we would love to know about. To either open an issue or send on the Slack chat or in the next call.
Like a wish list for Santa.
Yeah, something
Oh,
like
it's
that.
going to be so long. Sorry.
Yeah, but well,
You shouldn't
that
have
can be
told that.
that
No,
can be
but
a
yeah, I
double-edged
got it.
sword, because when people ask for stuff, we will usually reply with, "Yeah, that would be great. Would you mind trying to? Would you want to try to do it?"
I like, no. Okay. No. But yes, I definitely would like to take a look of what is there and how it can help for my case and for other cases. That yes, good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it would be great if it's useful for that, because we've never, like I personally don't do anything like that, so I didn't really consider that use case when doing the development. So it's nice if someone has particular needs, because then we can try to make sure that that video still works for that.
I think that my philosophy with that is like always look for something that is already done or that
Mm-hmm.
somebody had started instead of start from scratch, because I think that is a waste of talent. Like when all of you had put like some time in something and just leave it there. Yeah. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more quick updates from anyone? All right, so then let's move on to the main things that we wanted to talk about. So this has been a little bit of a quiet month because both me and Santiago have been a little bit swamped. So not much has happened. One nice thing is that our homepage now is a lot nicer thanks to Agustina, who built like a getting started section. So that thanks for that. That was really good. And right, so one thing I just noticed that GitHub has now is discussion boards. So this is similar to issues, but it's more like something like a forum than the issues. So this is a new feature they have, and you can enable it on certain projects. So what I did was I just enabled it on Bool just so that we could have a look. So let me see if I can share my screen here, actually. Share. All right. Oh, no, that looks awful. And I can't stop sharing. Okay, there. Select window. Okay, there we go. So this is what the discussions tab would look like in a repository. So it enables a new tab here on the top, and then you can create different topics. So this is all customizable. So for example, I made a general category, a questions category, and a show and tell, which are the default things that GitHub places there for us. It automatically links to the code of conduct and to the main website in here, which is nice. And we can pin one of the discussions. We can pin that as this little banner here. So I think we can probably put an image and have the image show up. The nice thing about it when compared to issues is that when so let's say I start a discussion here. So example discussion, and let's put it in like questions. So just an example to show this off at the community call. All right. So it's kind of the same as it looks pretty much the same as an issue, and you can write comments and everything. But at some point when someone replies, so if I say like found the answer, it's this.
42.
Yes, of course. Right, so if someone writes an answer, there's a way to, of course, now I can't find it, but there's a way of marking this as the correct answer. Oh, it's because I put it in the general category. So yeah, if it's in, right, so if it's in the Q&A category, if someone posts the right answer, we can mark this as the right answer, and it'll move to the top. So every time a question is answered, when you see, it's kind of like Stack Overflow in that sense, where we can see the question and we can see the answer as the top question. And then we don't close it. So the question still says here, and it stays here, and it says that it's been answered. So because with the issues, when we close it, it kind of goes away, and then if people are asking questions on the issues, they might just disappear. But that's not a problem we have at the moment, so we don't necessarily need this. But I also don't particularly like doing Q&A on Slack, because the Slack messages will disappear because we're not really paying for Slack. So older messages will get deleted, or I mean, Slack keeps them, but it would charge us to do that, to view them. So since GitHub has this now, my thinking was that maybe we should consider using it at some point. The one problem with this is that the discussions are for specific repositories. So I feel like a discussion board on each repository would just be a little bit wasted, because there's not a lot of traffic in many of these repositories. So if we do start getting more questions in the future, we might want to have something like in the contributing repository, have a discussions tab or something like that, and then we can point people there when they have questions. But this is mostly something to think about, like, and I don't. I'm curious to know, like, if anyone has any opinions or preferences, or just like, is this just something that we should care about mostly?
So I like the new feature. I do feel like that GitHub sometimes do this, like keep some features only for repositories rather to apply them to the whole group or project, for example. But yeah, we can always put like a discussion in a certain repository and use that as a default for the entire organization. So I'm wondering, I mean, it's a good stuff having like a forum for that. So I think it will be more oriented to users. So like, for example, suppose that Diana had the opportunity to uh, solve any of her problems with Verde, so he can post, oh, I can do this with well logs with Verde and get a grid. And some other people may come and say, oh, and how do you adjust that parameter, or are you applying cross validation or anything? So for that case, I think it's good. And I don't imagine people posting questions regarding Fatiando on Stack Overflow or such stuff for now, at least. So, so yeah, might be a good idea to try it out. Hi, Samar.
Hi, Zamar.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm late. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. How are you?
Doing pretty well, trying to figure out how Google Calendar functions, because I had this meeting in Google Calendar and I'm terrible with time zones I'm bad at time zones, and I'm bad at Google Calendar. So I'm figuring it out. Thank you, Santi, for that message.
Yeah, time zones are really something that we're all gonna have to get used to. In a couple of hours, I have a meeting with people in 5 different time zones, including some people in someone in New Zealand. So it's very hard to find a time when everyone can meet.
Yep.
All right, so we were just discussing this new feature that's on GitHub, where we can have discussion forums now instead of just the issues and the code. So they just introduced something that's still in beta. So we can enable that optionally for our repositories. So this would be somewhere where we could have question and answers, and people can post stuff about like some use cases and things like that. Because that was I like that idea. So Santiago just mentioned that that having someone post, like people be able to post use cases, would be interesting.
So I'm curious to know,
Mhm.
currently, where do you have a lot of like people asking things? What is your main in this moment? Is Slack?
Yeah. So right now, most questions we get are through Slack, or sometimes people will open issues on GitHub for that.
So the difference between the issues and the forum is that issues has to be solved, and forum is kind of like more general conversation.
Yeah, usually.
Sort of?
I mean, yeah, they're not super different, which is why a lot of people will ask questions and issues, and a lot of projects handle it that way.
What would you prefer? That you guys prefer to keep those in issues, or?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
that's a great question. No, that's a great question. Personally, I feel like the discussions are so the forum is probably a nicer format than the issues. For something like a question and answer, in the forum we can mark questions as answered, and they're still visible. But if we close an issue, GitHub hides it by default.
Okay.
And we also use it for a lot of other stuff, for just discussing features and having it sort of like as a to-do list. So it's not that easy to find questions on the issues. So for example, let's say you have a question about how to do something. It's not very easy to find, to figure out if someone already asked that question and it's already been answered.
All your users in Slack are in GitHub, right? Probably, right?
Somewhat. Yeah, I would guess so.
Oh,
And,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's not. I don't think it's a big thing to ask for people to create a GitHub account, because
if you are in this, you should have one account at least. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking them to create Slack accounts anyway, so.
Well, Slack has emojis, so I like them.
Yeah. Well, the discussions have emojis too, so that's also nice.
Really? No, let's go with GitHub. Sorry.
They have emojis, but I don't think they have like stickers or. Well, you can put GIFs. GIFs do work.
So I have a question. When the issues get resolved through GitHub, you did say that GitHub automatically just makes it kind of go away, right? Would there be a discussion or a documentation on previous issues in the past in case people maybe want to see what's sort of been taken care of?
Yeah, those are all they're all public. So if you go to the issues tab on any repository, you can select. So by default, GitHub only shows you open issues, but there's a little button that says closed right next to the number of opened issues, and then it shows you all the closed issues.
Okay.
Right, so you can easily browse like the history of things that have been done as well, like that. And same thing with pull requests. You can look at open ones, and you can also look at closed and merged ones.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Maybe the discussion table is better to I don't know, to answer a question or something like that, because the issues is very difficult to find the solutions. Maybe installations problem. An installation problem is more easy to find in the discussion than in the issues, maybe. And if you want to refer to this problem in Slack, you can just say to people that go to the discussion section and find this topic, maybe.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to do in the beginning. Is when we get questions on Slack, you kind of have to say, thanks. Could you could you post this on the forum instead? So yeah, I still do a lot of that for GMT, where people will just randomly email me for some reason. I don't know why me, but then my default response is just, yeah, thanks for the question. Do you mind posting this in the GMT forum? And then someone else can answer it. Because usually someone else knows the answer and I don't. But yeah, so the forums are nice, and it's nice that GitHub offers this now, because the other options, well, there's one other good option for open source that's free, which is called Discourse. Which is really nice. That's what Jupyter uses, and I think Simpeg has that as well, and we use it for GMT. But then it's also like a separate account, and it's a separate thing that you have to set up. So configuring Discourse, it takes a lot of work. So I think maybe keeping everything on GitHub might be nicer. All right, so actually, particularly Isamara and Diana, do you think that you, like, as you start using, if you, let's say you like make an interesting application and it's something that you can share, do you feel like you'd want to post that so that other people can see it? Or is that something that you wouldn't feel comfortable doing?
I will.
Yeah, I think I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, if it works.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, if it works.
Well, we can relax the definition of works, right?
It's relative. Okay.
Yeah, so if that's something that you think people might use, then we could give that a shot, actually. It's not like it costs anything for us, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going over
So,
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm going over the contributing document right now on GitHub. So, looks exciting.
Yeah, I was about to say where the discussion forum should live. So maybe the contributing repository is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's best if we have just one repository with the discussions. And one thing we can do is we can pin issues on the other repositories with a message saying, like, if you have a question, go here. So on that note, sorry, who was? So on that note, the contributing repository probably needs a new name, because we're using it for much more than just contributing guidelines. We actually have more, like we've been having some discussions there as well on issues and stuff like that. So And particularly if you're hosting the forum there, it would be kind of weird to go to the contributing repository to ask a question or something. So what could we rename it to?
Community.
Yeah. Any other suggestions? Or does everyone like community? Because I mean I like it. I'm not complaining, Santiago. Just wondering if there's any other ideas from anyone. All right, so community it is. Okay, so we might have to change some scripts in that repository for that deploy the contributing guidelines. But otherwise, it should be pretty straightforward to just rename it to community.
Yeah.
I think that's better because it has our code of conduct and everything else.
Yeah, sure. Maybe a good opportunity to move the deployment, the automatic deployment from Travis to GitHub Actions.
Mm-hmm.
It's an issue I opened a while ago. Oh no, you opened it. Yeah, almost a year ago.
Yeah. No, it's always sad when I think back to how long ago things happened. Like March feels like it was 5 years ago. All right. We have someone else. Mariana. Hi.
Mariana, don't hide. It's hiding. Guys, unfortunately, I have to leave. But thank you for the invitation for this call. It's very cool. Next time I will come like a little more prepared. I'm going to check Verde for sure because I think that is going to help me, and I'm going to start being a good user poker for all of you guys. So I will be around.
Awesome.
The next call is next year, I can imagine.
Yes, probably
Yes,
sometime
January.
around mid-January. Yeah.
Okay, so if I don't see any of you, happy holidays. Finally, happy new year. Let's be done with this year. Guys, see you. Nice to see you. Nice to meet
thanks
you.
for coming.
Bye.
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 All right. Yes, I think that's a good action item then. So we need to rename the contributing repository to community and start enabling the discussions there as well, and it maybe post a few samples. So we might bother some people like Agustina, Diana, and Isamar, so that we can get some initial posts there. I think this also solves an issue that we had on the website, that we wanted to have a place where people could post use cases, but just maintaining that on the website is a little bit tricky because it's not as easy to post to a forum as it is to contributing to the website. So this might be like a lower barrier thing where we can have a category for showing off stuff, and we can point people there. I think that might be an easier solution. All right. So anything else on the discussion forums?
When you finish to change the name in the contributing repository, maybe we need to add in the website the I don't know, the link or the redirection of from to the discussion board.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So we need to fix the links on the website and probably in a lot of other places. Luckily, GitHub redirects automatically if you rename, but I don't know for how long it's going to do that. So it might be good if we start renaming things. So maybe in the project docs as well.
I think it doesn't have a time limit unless you create a new repository with the same name as the old.
Okay.
So, for example, when I rename my username on GitHub, I created a new user with the same name as the old one, just it doesn't get occupied by a third party. And so every old link to my old username is now linked to my current username.
Okay. Oh, so you're squatting the other name.
Yeah, I just book it, like don't occupy it because people might want to access to my old username.
All right. So yeah, we can. Yeah, I don't think it's urgent to rename, but it would be good if we just fix the links in other places. All right, shall we move on then? So the other major item that I thought we could discuss is that we started having a lot more interest and development around Harmonica, which is the gravity and magnetics package, and so there's been a bit of a more of a surge in development there. But one thing that's not very well defined, at least not as well as some of the other packages, is the scope of Harmonica. And by scope, I mean what are the things that we want it to have, and also what are the things that we don't want it to have. And this all is related to what niche are we trying to fit in the current open source geophysics ecosystem. So to kind of start this off, I thought we could try to define this niche. And when I was trying to think of this reorganization for Fatiando, one of the main things that I was trying to take into account is the new developments of things like PyGimli and Simpeg and GemPy and all these other packages, PyVista and all of that. And the old Fatiando did a little bit of a lot of those things, but all of those libraries, they do all of that a lot better than we ever did. So the niche that I see, at least, is that there's not a whole lot for processing of gravity and magnetics. There's also not a whole lot for nonlinear inversion in gravity magnetics. So things like inverting for basement depth, inverting for mohole depth, other techniques like Euler deconvolution and this sort of stuff doesn't really exist anywhere else. And you can't easily do any of that with software like Simpeg. But for physical property inversion, so when we're doing like a 3D inversion for density distribution, I think that's handled by Simpeg very well. And I think we would have a tough time making something that would be competitive in terms of computational resources, actually, because their differential equation approach is quite fast and it's quite efficient for that. But on the other hand, you couldn't do inversion for basement depth with their code. So that's kind of what I see, but I'm wondering, like, what does everyone else think, and what's your idea for what this could be?
So I agree that we should focus on processing gravity data from raw data. That's one stuff. And so I don't see too much tools providing the capabilities to do so. Like for example, the classic example of that is the normal gravity. I haven't seen any package that uses the analytic solution for the normal gravity of an ellipsoid at any high latitude. So even though that's part of bool, it's obviously entangled with harmonic. Um, so that's one part, right? Like processing gravity and magnetic data from raw. So that would be to remove normal gravity, to compute terrain corrections, to grid the data, uh, compute upward continuations and such. Um, so that's one big part. I think that's the part we are covering right now. So for the future, I think we lack, and there are a lot of people asking for it. Would be all the methods that use Fourier transforms. So that's this the part that we are missing right now. That it's actually being asked by some people. So probably the uh, yeah, everything related to FFTs applied to harmonic data, that would be nice to have. Um, so that's another part. And what part I think I will try to avoid to include in harmonica is the inversion part. So I think it would be better to have an inversion package besides harmonica. Um,
So
but
what do you mean? Do you mean like the generics of inversion, or the like
yeah,
if we're doing a Moho inversion, put that in a separate package?
yeah, maybe we can think of how we are managing griders in harmonica. So the base class for the harmonica griders is inverted, but we subclass it to create the harmonica griders. So maybe we can think of the same way, like having a package creating all the base classes or functions for the design we want to implement, and subclass them or use them directly in harmonica to very specific type of inversions. Um, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong and we can just focus only on specific inversions for harmonic fields and write into harmonica and don't try to write a general inversion scheme. But I think that's mainly design. So here is like we have to find the balance what between the desire to build something general versus the desire to not get lost in the general case and not solving anything because we will always find some specific example that doesn't apply to the general implementation we already have. So um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can try writing some inversion um, uh, methods and classes on harmonica and see what happens. And if we see that it can be generalized to another type of inversions, then we can move it to a separate package. But taking into account the history we had in Fatiando, splitting a big package into several is kind of harder than joining packages or making just um, a requirement like a dependency. So,
Hmm.
so these are my thoughts. Like we already have processing. Maybe we need some more tools for that, like the prism layer I'm working on. We definitely need some FFT related methods, and we should start thinking about inversions.
All right. Any other? All right. So Mariana is saying that in my case, the difference from Fatiando to other packages is emotional. You are the only developers who I can have such a cercanía. Nice. The fact that Santiago Agustina are Latin American is somehow nice. Latin America. And feels closer to me than any other package. I tend to agree. I like that as well. Yeah, we're not dominated by imperialist North Americans. Though, says the guy living in Britain, right? But yeah, and but I mean, even though like the people who develop these other packages, they're all super nice and they're good communities, and they've done a phenomenal job with all those packages. So I feel like it would be kind of silly for us to not try to do something that's complementary to what everyone else does instead of trying to compete. So I don't know if a lot of you are on the software underground, but there's been some discussion there about making a package called Subsurface that is attempting to tie together all these different geophysical packages. So things like PyGimli, SimPeg, and PyVista, and GemPy, because they all have the concept of meshes, but you can't easily interchange meshes between them. So this project is kind of trying to tie it all together. So that's something where we should be trying to keep informed in the discussion, because we might end up coming to that at some point. Right now, we're focusing more on data processing than the modeling side, but we will reach that. So, anyone has any other thoughts on the niche and the scope?
I think that it's okay that you say maybe it's better to mix different packages and not create something that exists in other package in other places. But from processing is very necessary because I don't have a lot of packages to do that. And for inversions, in my case, I think that if I need to do an inversion, the only to obtain the moho, something like that, the only paper or process that I know can I do is from your paper in the, I don't know, maybe 15, something like that. I don't know the age.
17. Yeah.
17. Yeah. Is the only way to do it for me. In the other package, PyGrimB or something like that, I don't know how to use it, or they don't have an example or something to start to do the inversion in this area. Maybe because of that, I like the idea to create something like that, like the old Fatiando in this new Fatiando. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. But anyone else? Does anyone else have something that they'd want to share? All right. So yeah, I tend to agree that there's no other package out there for doing that particular type of inversion or any of the data processing. So I think that's a clear niche for Harmonica. On the note that on what Santiago was saying about like having the generic inversion stuff be a separate package, that is something that I've been trying to design for the past 9 years. And every time I do it, it never works quite as I dreamed that it would work. So if you look back on the old Fatiando code, I think there's maybe at least 4 different attempts at having a generic inversion framework, and they all suffered from several issues all the time. So that is a little, building a generic inversion framework is harder than it would seem. So I kind of agree that we shouldn't be that there shouldn't be a generic inversion framework inside of Harmonica, because I think that's beyond the point. And if we ever do need one, we should either build one if it doesn't exist, or try to contribute to an existing project and adopt it. One thing is that a lot of Simpag and PyGimli, they have inversion frameworks themselves. So if we could do something that could be shared between all these projects, that would be a good thing, right? That's what Pooch turned out to be, and that's what Bool also. That's why we moved the normal gravity out of Harmonica and into Bool, because there were other packages that wanted to use the same code. So that's a point where I think we should start talking to these other package developers to ask, like, what do you need what do we all need from a generic inversion framework? Could we build this together so that it's not just on a couple of people to maintain it, where we actually have more people maintaining this thing? But at least from personal experience, it is harder to divide a package. But in this case, we wouldn't really be dividing a package. It would be changing the internals of the inversions. So what I feel like would be a more kind of sensible approach at this point is to just code the inversions from scratch for whatever we need. And then when we see something that's common to all the inversions, then we can start stripping that out. But trying to design the inversion package from the start means that we don't code any inversions for a long time, because we'll be arguing about this inversion package for a couple of years before we can do any inversions in Harmonica. Right. All right. So I don't know. Do you? So I don't know. What do you think, Santiago?
Yeah, you're right. Like, we are not trying to add like a separate thing to Harmonica. That, I mean, it's something that will get used inside of Harmonica. And if we decide to move the back end of the inversion code into a separate package, the front end in Harmonica would it shouldn't be noticing that, right? So, for example, just an idea for putting an example. Say we create a separate package for doing a QML layer interpolations. So, if we move all the QLN layers to a separate package, but we want to keep them inside Harmonica, the usage of Harmonica shouldn't be changed. Just the internals of the code that would use this other package rather to having all inside it. So yeah, from that perspective, it seems easier to write a specific inversions for Harmonica rather than having a whole general scheme for inversion fields. And yeah, I absolutely agree that it's not easy to make a general case. We are already biased with the problems we face already, so it's very hard to come up with a new one without even having any experience with that. And so yeah, and I'm just curious about how many stuff of by Gimli or Simpeg we can reuse to do so. I will have to read through the code. Of,
Yeah.
I don't know if Simpeg has it, but because I know that they are. I mean, the core of Simpeg inversions is the differential equations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. I'm not exactly sure how we can use their code to our benefit. But I haven't read any code of by Gimli, so I don't know what exactly they do. So maybe a good opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so very likely we can't just reuse their own code because they have very similar to what the inversion the last inversion framework for Fatiando was, where you had like the misfit classes and the regularization classes, and you could add them together, things like that. They ended up developing something very similar for Simpag, but it's very tied to Simpag. Because they developed it inside of Simpag. So the I think that the way to have this generic inversion framework would actually be to start from scratch, but with all these other developers and looking at what they've done in each of their own packages, and then try to figure out, okay, what do we all want, and then we can build something that works with all of our packages, right? By like maybe taking bits and pieces from different some stuff from Simpag, some stuff from PyGimli, some stuff from the old Fatiando. An interesting project for this is called Pylops. So they have some of this stuff, right, for creating like finite difference derivative matrices, for handling sparse matrices and things like that for inversion. So I have chatted with some of the Pylops developers about sort of having Pylops be this centralized inversion package that maybe we all use. My main issue is that they have a lot of stuff that's seismic in Pylops, which kind of feels out of place. But I think they're stripping. So there's like some signal processing stuff in there, some wave equation stuff that I don't know why it's there, but I think they are starting to strip that away. So this might be a way forward of, instead of us implementing all these things, we could start using Pylops for the inversions. That's something that we should look into. Right, because then like if they suddenly they make a version that works on GPUs, which I think they already do have, then we get that for free without having to develop it ourselves. Right, that's the main benefit of using a shared library, is that if someone implements task support, we all have it. Oh, right. So, yeah, I'm not gonna say this out loud, but yay! I just saw the chat message. Right. So, in terms of one last question, then I would ask is that, do we want to have? So I feel like it's pretty settled that processing and these nonlinear types of inversions are a good thing for us to have in Harmonica. And by processing, I mean stuff like equivalent layers, the whole FFT-based upward continuation, derivatives, all those filters, and calculating like Bouguer anomalies and things like that. So my question then would be, do we want to have the modeling and the processing in the same package? So should Harmonica do both the inversion and all the processing, or should we have a separate package for, so Harmonica could just be the processing and we could have a separate package that's for the modeling part? Because that's something that we should consider, or is that just too many packages?
Um, I feel that there is, I mean, for example, with Bool, we decided to move the ellipsoids to a separate package to make it a theme package, so any other packages or big packages like SH Tools could use it without having a large dependency with a lot of functions that they wouldn't use at all. So for harmonica, I think my idea of harmonica is more like the big package of fatiando as it is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on Verde, it depends on Bull, it depends on Puch, depends on every other package, right? So having another separate package that works with harmonic fields and just do the modeling, I feel that they were